Can commissioners please check in?
Here we go. I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners special meeting for Wednesday, September 27, 2023 to order. Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
10 present, 2 absent.
10 present, 2 absent. Please note that Commissioner Fortune and Commissioner Mankins are absent from tonight, and Commissioner Mankins is at state golf, so good luck to his golf team today and over the next couple days. Next, we'll move to the prayer and pledge. Commissioner Sorge, could you lead us?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bowl. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to public comment on any item, and this is only for the special meeting agenda tonight. So if you'd like to comment on the item that we have for the special agenda, please come forward, state your name, address. Seeing none, I'll move to call for a special meeting. J.P. Gallagher, Chief Executive, is calling a special meeting of the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners preceding the Committee of the Whole meeting on Wednesday, September 27, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. The purpose of the meeting is to approve an agreement between the Forest Service and Butte-Silver Bowl Parks and Recreation Department, which has a time-sensitive deadline. So we have this communication. Number one, number 2023-485, Bob Lazary, Parks and Recreation Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to have Chief Executive Gallagher sign the agreement with the United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service for the Thompson Park Agreement. This agreement is for services that include a camp host, upkeep of the park, gate closures, and other duties associated with keeping the park open during the summer months. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to concur and place on file communication number 2023-485.
We have a motion and a second to file communication number 2023-485. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yeas, 0 nay. Motion passes. Motion passes. That concludes our special meeting, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? All in favor, signal by aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners Committee of the Whole meeting for Wednesday, September 27th. Clerk, or commissioners, can we check in, please?
Clerk, can we have roll call?
1 presiding, 9 present.
Please let the record show that Commissioner Mankins and Fortune are still excused. We will bypass the prayer and the pledge and not do that again, but I will ask for public comment on any items on the agenda. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Is it on? Okay. Chairman Frederickson, Committee of the Whole. My name is Amy Steinmetz, last name spelled Steinmetz. Address is 2950 Ranger Drive, East Helena, Montana. I'm with the Department of Environmental Quality, the Waste Management and Remediation Division Administrator. I'm here tonight to provide comment on communication number 2023-436. I'm not a Butte citizen, and therefore I don't presume that I can or should try to influence your policy. So I'm not here in support or opposition to the resolution. Instead, I'm here to say DEQ is listening, and we want to help however we can within the bounds of our authority. DEQ's role at federal Superfund lead sites is a consultative role. Our obligation is to advocate for the protection of Montana's communities under Superfund law. We do that by working with communities, EPA, responsible parties, and other state, federal, and local partners. Some of my team members who are here with me tonight and I have attended a few of your meetings over the last month. We've listened to comment on the resolution from the community, and we listened to your discussion on August 23rd. The two biggest themes that we've heard are that you want transparency around Superfund and you want to be informed. So I just want to say two things about those that DEQ is trying to address. To the first point about transparency, DEQ, along with Chief Executive J.P. Gallagher and the Natural Resource Damage Program, wrote a letter to EPA Regional Administrator Casey Becker on August 2nd, advocating for opening the technical team meetings for public observation. We believe that this was a necessary step to demonstrate that our agencies are committed to transparency and to the community. EPA has stated their commitment to transparency as well. As we work with them, we will continue to advocate for transparency on EPA lead sites, and we are likewise committed to transparency when it comes to DEQ lead sites in the corridor. To the second point about information sharing, I have a few offers and I'm also open to suggestions. On DEQ lead projects, you have seen DEQ staff at your meetings providing updates on Montana Pole and Blacktail Creek. We will continue to give you short presentations anytime there's a significant update on progress, or more frequently upon request. Also, when EPA provides updates on their projects, we can make ourselves available to provide DEQ's perspective on the project. Additionally, my team and I are always happy to answer questions, and those of us here tonight will find a place to leave our cards before we leave in case you'd like to reach out to any of us. Finally, I just want to close by sharing how much my team and I value and respect Butte-Silver Superfund staff. Chief Executive Gallagher and I are in regular communication, and I really appreciate how easy he is to reach and how well we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. Eric Hassler is an invaluable part of the Superfund technical team. He's knowledgeable, experienced, and has a calming presence that I've noticed can really help restore calm to a group. Julia Crane has a similar presence. She's a fantastic meeting facilitator. She's organized and calm and smart. And DEQ's public information officer, who's with me tonight, has told me how much her participation on their communication calls is valued because of her knowledge and experience. I don't have much experience working with your attorneys, but Sean Peterson is an environmental engineer, an attorney, and clearly is not afraid to speak up for what he believes. Can't think of a better combination of qualities in legal representation. As I've come up to speed on federal Superfund sites, and in particular Butte Superfund over the last year, my team has told me how important it is that in our decision making, we are communicating with and advocating for what Butte-Silver needs. It's your community, and you and your children will be here long after the Superfund work is complete. We may not always have been vocal about our role here, but I wanted you to know that we are here for you, we're listening, and we invite you to reach out if you have questions or concerns.
Thank you. Any more comment on any items on the agenda? All right, seeing none. All right, we'll move on. I don't have any report to give. We have a few presentations, so we'll get moving along. Section 1, bid openings, public hearings, and/or presentations. 1, communication number 2023-454, Kayla Sheridan, 212 Bavarian Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation on September 27th, 2023, relating to the remodel of 739 South Main Street, Butte, Montana. Welcome. The mic is
Hi.
all yours.
Thanks, Chairman. Thanks, Commissioners. Before we get started, I do want to pass around a document that includes pictures of the previous state of the property as well as the current state of the property. Yeah, thank you. And then we also have pictures that show the floor plans and future state of the property for this property. Thank you. So yeah, my name is Kayla Sheridan. This is my brother Riley Sheridan. And we purchased this property in August of this year, and we're made aware of the issues that have been ongoing with it. It is condemned and considered dangerous. So we've been working with the Building and Code Department to make sure we're complying with all the process that we can follow to ensure that this property is remodeled and as safe, as I know that is a big concern with the neighborhood. And with that process, Riley can speak more on this as he is the experienced builder. He's helped remodel a few properties in Butte. And so we're hoping to come to you guys today and see if you had any questions that we might be able to answer, and ultimately ask for your support on the remodel of this property. So that is a general overview. So I'd like to open it up to questions for you guys. Yes, Commissioner Reardon? Yeah, maybe you can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I have a few questions here and all that. First of all, this was always a goal throughout this community, especially in that district down there, to work with these homes and all that. This home was so dilapidated and basically was condemned. And my question to you is basically, you haven't gone through the permit process and everything to get this reestablished?
Yeah, we just recently got the residential permit
Right.
to go through, so we're good there.
Yeah, and ultimately we are hoping to live in it. Where it's a duplex, so we're hoping to remodel it fully so we can both live on each side of it. So, yeah.
Great, great. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so, this has been a battle not only before I came, but before, the neighborhood people and all that. And I go through there quite a bit lately and all that stuff. And I admire you, I really do, and all that. And that's the procedure that we want, If this is going to be a home that you two young people will enjoy and are willing to put in the effort to make it right and be part of the neighborhood and all that. But that was a major concern to some of the constituents that really didn't know what was going on, is that basically here we go for another 10 years of this house sitting there and then becoming a drug haven and stuff like that. I have to commend, I believe that the traffic has slowed down. That neighborhood is really starting to come around. That's my own personal opinion. Thanks to Sheriff Lester, he spends a lot of time up there too. I'm sure you've seen him around and that,
Yeah.
And the people are really, and that's what we want in this neighborhood, in this District 8 and 9, is these are great neighborhoods, and we don't want to tear down these houses unless they need to be. And I was quite surprised at the work that you've done, because a few of the officials in this room and that went through that building before it was condemned and all that, and I thought, boy, we were doing everybody a favor from here to Whitehall, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I just want to, and I just encourage you to do it right, and I think that you guys have that effort, and it's been well accepted by the neighbors The only complaint I had as a commissioner is that dumpster in the front, you have to pull out in the lane and you're almost right in the middle of Main Street, so maybe next time you could put it in back. But I congratulate you and really, really thank you for your effort, and I wish you all the luck in the world for saving the building and starting a new life in Butte. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon.
Are there other Commissioner O'Neill?
Thank you, Chairman Ferguson. I just, no comments, but comments, yes. Keep up the good work. And I'm teasing Commissioner Reardon. If you need to put it in there to get the garbage out, that's all right, okay? And if somebody hits it, it's all right. I love you, Commissioner Reardon. Keep up the good work.
We will have a smaller dumpster soon. We just needed the big one because there was a lot of stuff in there, so it'll be a smaller one here soon.
Any other comments? Well, thank you so much for coming up and great work. I know how hard it is to come up before council, and so I really appreciate it. This has been a home, like Commissioner Reardon said, long before most of us were even on here. I mean, there's probably a couple, but anyway, keep up the good work, and thanks for coming up and showing us progress.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, Commissioners.
All right. Moving on to communication number 2023-479, Hattie Thatcher, District 3 Commissioner and Board of Health Member, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for time on the September 27th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting for Mark Thompson, Vice President of Environmental Affairs for Montana Resources, to give a presentation regarding the Dust Control Mitigation Program. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Yes, I actually watched this presentation from Mr. Thompson at the Board of Health meeting, and both Mr. Rolich and I agreed that it would probably be a beneficial presentation for the entire council to see, and then maybe the general public, I guess, would see it on a more, or a larger platform, I guess you could say. Words are struggling today. So with that, Mr. Thompson, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman, members of the council. Appreciate this opportunity. As the Commissioner said, I gave this presentation a couple weeks ago at the Board of Health. Got a lot of good questions out of it. It seemed like there was a lot of interest, and so I appreciate the opportunity to share it here tonight. Hopefully I can get through this relatively quickly. Sometimes I get to babbling too, so JP, just throw something at me if I start that, okay? So it's kind of a two-part presentation. I wanted to bring the Board of Health up to speed on some things we've been doing recently, mostly focused around that neighborhood around the old Greeley School. And then go into a presentation on what Montana Resources does to control fugitive dust at the mine and the various sources of dust that we have and the controls we have in place for that. So starting on the update, that lower corner picture is the roof of the monitoring station at the Greeley School, the old Greeley School. As you can see, it's fairly well instrumented. Probably among the most instrumented monitoring stations in the country. About 4 years ago, I think we're coming up at the end of 4 years right now, Montana Resources added some instruments there. The regulatory authorities have kind of been moving regulations to smaller particulates. That's what's regulated right now. The national standard is based on a particulate that's smaller than 2.5 micron. There was a study done by Dr. Haler from Montana Tech that suggested that mine dust might be larger particulates than what's being monitored for regulatory purposes. We found that as an interesting hypothesis, so we added a lot of monitoring towards the larger particulate end of the scale. So that's about half of what you see up there. Those monitors monitor the mass of dust in the air at any given time, and they also collect a sample that then we can have analyzed. And of course, our interest is seeing what is the metal concentrations in those particulates. So we've been doing that for 4 years. We've got a fairly robust data set. We're have no intention of discontinuing it. But one of the things we did last year is we went in that neighborhood around the Greeley School and we did a door-to-door survey of all those residences, trying to find out what the concerns are. You know, you can speculate at what people are concerned about. We didn't want to speculate. We wanted to hear it from them. We got a fairly good statistical response from that community. We asked them what their concerns were, environmentally, health-wise, any issues related to the mine, and then any general concerns they had. One thing we discovered in there is that those areas around those two silver stars demonstrated a statistically different level of concern of mine dust, higher. And we thought that was quite interesting. We called them the two hot spots of concern. And we tried to figure out what might be driving that. Coincidentally with that, we've heard a lot of anecdotal stories about, hey, I wash my car and the next day it's covered in dust. Or, you know, I get a lot of sediment collecting in my rain gutters. We haven't been able to actually chase a lot of those down, but the stories are credible. So while DEQ has done decades of air monitoring throughout the Butte community, and it's very clear that that monitoring station at the Greeley School with the kind of orange star is the most appropriate place to monitor air quality in the community of Butte, there's nothing to say that that actually is representative of that smaller community surrounding the air monitoring. So the hypothesis came up that perhaps air quality within that small neighborhood is not homogeneous. Maybe there are pockets of higher particulate matter or dust deposition. And the survey kind of confirmed that the anecdotal stories would be consistent with that hypothesis. So we decided to put in what we called satellite air quality monitoring stations there. And what we're looking at is the kind of the square instrument with the stack on it is a continuous total suspended particulate monitor, so it captures all particulates in the air and measures them. We can also collect a sample for analysis of metals. That odd-looking thing kind of on the left, yeah, it's left on both sides, okay. I was worried about that. Is what they call a dust fall jar. That was a fairly popular method of air quality monitoring in the 70s and 80s and has kind of lost favor in more recent time to more sophisticated instruments. But it's very simple. It's a jar. So anything that gets into the jar is captured, and you get a semi-quantitative analysis of mass over that area. So you can look at mass of dust deposition per square meter per square foot. We also can collect a sample from that and have it analyzed for metals. So both satellite stations are identical, and we added a dust fall jar to the Greeley so that we have a comparison of if there's any heterogeneity within that community on dust deposition. We found some cooperating landowners that allowed us to set these stations up on their property. Obviously, we had to plug in somewhere, and so we struggled with, well, how do we compensate them for electricity? We just said, oh, the hell with it, just bring us your electric bill. So they became even more cooperative after we made that offer. So those just have come up and running earlier this summer. We're getting data trickling in, but nothing that's been compiled and nothing that I'm able to share with you tonight. But we are collecting the data, and obviously the goal is to see if there's differential air quality within that neighborhood. So the other thing we were asking ourselves is, okay, so this will tell us dust, right? This will tell us the metals in the dust. How do we distinguish? Obviously, if there was no active mining, there's still going to be dust. So how do we distinguish the dust from active mining from dust from historic mining and smelting, or just naturally occurring dust and mineralization from the richest hill on earth? So how do we distinguish? How do we fingerprint, so to speak? So we started looking at all the data we have, and we have quite a bit of data, but it's kind of, couple dozen samples of this over this period of time. You know, we get quarterly tailing samples for the past 30 years, you know, 120 samples there. But what do we really have? You know, what do we really have that shows what is happening over time and have a robust data set? So we stumbled on some production data from the mine, and every blast hole we drill, we sample and we analyze obviously for copper and molybdenum to know if it's ore or waste. But we also sample for arsenic and lead. So it's like, holy smokes. So we looked at it and we looked at how much data we have from 2021 and 2022. We've got 30,000 analysis over those 2 years from blast hole data. So now you're starting to develop a very robust data set. And yeah, our assay lab at the mine is an industrial lab. It's not a commercial lab like energy labs or anything like that. But when you have this much data, you can validate it statistically. You don't need all the quality control you get over a small number of samples. So we did that, and we came up with this distribution of lead. Kind of summing it up, the average of those 30,000 samples is about 25.4 parts per million, and the maximum observed out of 30,000 samples is just under 107 parts per million. To put that in comparison, the cleanup standard for lead in Butte is 1,200 parts per million. The cleanup standard in Anaconda is 400 parts per million. So we tried to duplicate that with arsenic, but it wasn't as well distributed. In fact, basically all the 20,000 or 30,000 samples we have were at or below detection limit, and our lab's detection limit is about 5 milligrams per liter. So we can't run all the nifty statistics that we were able to run on the lead. This has less ability to talk to us, so to speak, but it is quite informative. And to put this in perspective, the cleanup standard for both Butte and Anaconda for arsenic is 250 milligrams per kilogram. So are these data conclusive? Are they saying anything that's definitive? No. It's informative, and it leads us down a path of what we need to look at as we go forward. So, and the other thing we've heard, and working with Dr. Haler at Tech, another contaminant of concern that she's identified, and I've heard it through Westside Soils as well, is manganese. So we have just recently added manganese to our blast hole analysis. So we're running about 15,000 blast hole samples a year. So in short order, we should have a pretty good statistical data set. So the other thing that we heard out of the community survey was we made people aware that the Butte-Silver RMAP program had been extended to that community, and they could call Eric and his team to come have their property sampled. It was good. It was not well known at that time, so it was good to get that word out. But some of the feedback we got was the limited parameters that are being analyzed under RMAP didn't specifically address those residents' concerns from what the mine dust could have in it. So working with Eric and his team, we asked that if they get a call from that neighborhood to have that property sampled, would they tell that property owner that MR will expand that analyte list to include cadmium, copper, manganese, molybdenum, and zinc at MR's expense, and then the data would be provided to the property owner. Here again, attempting to address some concerns we heard from the survey. So far, this is the first field season where samples have been collected. So far, there's been 8 properties, and I think I saw one come through email here just recently, so there might be 9 properties that have been sampled. RMAP samples multiple locations on the property as well as multiple depths, so one property has a lot of samples in it. So far, we've seen one copper result come back that exceeded the EPA screening levels for copper, and it was at depth. I believe it was a 12-inch sample. And so I got a hold of Eric and said, hey, what did you guys get for arsenic and lead? Because we're not seeing the arsenic and lead in what we get back. And Eric confirmed that it was high in arsenic and would likely qualify for remediation under our map. So I said, what's going on? In the profile, in the vertical profile of the soil, there wasn't like a gradation. It was like you just got down there and boom. And it was pretty high in both copper and lead and some other parameters. I said, how does that happen? And Eric's answer, and I think it's a very logical answer, is they're seeing this quite often out in the flats. And it's that waste rock at certain times in history was cheap, abundant, and easy to get a hold of, and people used it for backfill in their yards and foundations, and specifically on their driveway bases. And so Eric has told me that they're seeing a lot of this just kind of randomly distributed out in the flats. And so he did not find this surprising. Of course, with that explanation, it doesn't surprise me either. So it explains why we got that interval, why it was deep, and why it was so hot. So other than that, we haven't seen anything of interest. But hopefully, as we get more samples collected, we can look at that distribution of maybe some of that historic waste rock use. We can see a spatial distribution within that community and kind of figure out where that stuff is. So that kind of concludes, kind of the recent developments of what we're doing in that community. And I'm going to move on to what we do for dust control. So the kind of the big blocks of potential dust emissions come from drilling, blasting, loading and hauling, crushing and conveying, and then the tailings impoundment. So I'll step through these and what's being done individually to each of these things. So drilling is pretty straightforward. We drill wet. We add water as we drill. That controls the dust. It also helps circulate the cuttings from the drill hole, so the cuttings don't wrap around the drill bit and drill steel, and you can stick it. So that's a bad thing when you stick a drill steel. So we drill wet. We also have these curtains down around the hole that kind of contain the dust, but mostly the water does the work. The water trucks are fitted with heaters and the drill, and they transfer the water into tanks on the drill, which are also heated, so we can use water in the wintertime for this. Blast. 4, 3, 2, 1, fire it all. I don't know how that happened. Fat fingers, I guess. Blasting's a little more complicated. Blasting is a science, and good blasting reduces dust. I mean, the bottom line is when you blast correctly, you get less dust. And the reason is when you blast, you want to contain that energy down in the rock. Okay? You want it to break that rock, fragment the rock, create fines. And if all the energy goes straight up, you didn't break the rock very well. So that's the whole key. So bottom line with blasting is good blasting practices reduces dust. Bad blasting practices creates a lot of dust. When you get those holes that just rifle straight up in the air, you get a lot of dust. The big items here are sequencing and timing. So when we blast, like in the early days of open pit mining, you just tied all the holes together and you shot them all at once. And if you didn't get the breakage you wanted, you just loaded the pattern with more powder, and you just blasted it, and you created more fly rock, more dust, more ground vibrations, more rattling windows. But we've come a long ways. Now, with sequencing and timing, only one hole goes off at any one time. You can't see it with your eye, but only one hole goes off at a time. They may be milliseconds apart, but only one hole. That's huge in containing that energy. You get 2 holes going off at the same time, you got twice as much energy, a lot more chance that energy can go vertical. The other big one is stemming. We'll drill a 42-inch hole or 42-foot hole in the ground, and we'll fill it with about 16 feet of powder. The rest of the hole gets filled with crushed rock. And why crushed rock is important is as soon as that charge is initiated, it's going to follow the path of least resistance, which is straight up through an open hole. But we filled it with crushed rock. And that crushed rock is very angular, and it ties together. And as that force comes up, it forces that rock together and pushes against the blast hole and contains the energy down. If you don't get proper stemming, all the energy goes straight up. You don't get the breakage, and you get a lot of dust. So, simple answer on blasting, even though it's very complicated, is good blasting practices also yield less dust. So, I think this is just going to go right into the video, but I selected this video. We video every blast that we do. We also have seismographs on every blast that we do so that we know if we're shaking houses or what have you. But we video every blast, and most of the videos just zoom right in, right on the blast, and you can't even tell where it is, you just see the blast itself. This is one of the few videos we have that's kind of stand off at a distance where you can see the blast pattern, you can see the town, you can see everything relative in the mine. So that's why I selected this one.
4, 3, 2, 1, fire at all.
Is dust. So, do we blast perfectly every time? No, we don't. Are most of our blasts like this and well contained and well engineered? Yes. But are we perfect? No. Are there places in the pit where we blast where we have trouble no matter how well the blasting procedure is? If you look on that brown kind of protrusion out on the left, when we blast on that edge, we move rock down over that edge. And as that rock cascades down, we get a lot of dust. You know, do we generate dust with blasting? Yeah, we do. Do we do our best to minimize it? Yeah, we do. So, but are we perfect? No, we're not.
4, 3, 2, 1, fire at all.
Okay, so hauling. So we run Cat 793 trucks. Their capacity is about 240 tons. Their weight unloaded is about 240 tons. So a loaded truck rolling down the road, it's doing about 480 tons. Can it kick up some dust as it goes down a dirt road? You bet. What we have to cut down on that dust is we've converted 3 of those haul trucks. These are haul trucks that used to haul ore to the crusher. These were production trucks. We took them out of the fleet. We put $500,000 water bodies on them, and they're solely dedicated for one purpose, and that's dust control on the haul roads. They haul 52,000 gallons per load. So let's see how this video goes. And this is the haul road you get in on right out of the office, and he was coming up the road the other way, and I'm like, I don't get this lucky. So after the ore's brought to the crusher, it's crushed in the primary crusher, and from there it's all contained within buildings. For the most part, it's contained within buildings. And so you might say, well, okay, the dust is contained. Well, we got people working in those buildings, and so we have to maintain a clean and healthful environment for those guys. And so we have to get that dust out of that building and get clean air in there and keep that dust removed. But we can't just cut a hole in the side of a building, put a fan in, and blow the dust outside, because then we've got fugitive dust problems. So what we do, we have these dust collectors, also called bag houses, and it's a pretty simple concept. You pull a vacuum on the area that you want the dust removed from, and you pull that vacuum in and you get the air laden with dust to move into a bag house. The bags are essentially filters. Air can pass through the bags, dust can't. Dust stays in the bag house, air goes out the stack. And every so often, you have to back pulse the opposite direction into the bag to puff the bag out and drop the dust off the bag. The dust falls down in a hopper, and what we typically do is when the dust falls down in a hopper, we slurry it and then just put it back into process. We're required by our air quality permit to test the bag houses every 4 years to ensure that they have greater than 95% removal of the particulate matter fed to them. Most of the time our bag houses have greater than 99% removal. We've got a maintenance crew. They run around, take care of these things, change the bags, that type of stuff. And about once a month on every bag house we have, we do a dye check where essentially they throw colored chalk into the bag house, walk out and look at the stack. If they can see color in the stack, then they got a problem with the bag house. They need to diagnose it and fix it. So the bag houses we have is we've got 2 bag houses on the primary crusher. And these are very large bag houses. They're pulling 284,000 cubic feet of air per minute out of the primary crusher through the bags and out of stack. So that's over 250,000 cubic feet per minute that those bag houses are moving. At the core store, we've got a couple of belt junctions there that we need to keep the dust clear of. We've got 2 bag houses at 38,000 cubic feet air per minute. The secondary crusher, we have 4 bag houses at 132,000 cubic feet per minute. And fine ore, we have 4 bag houses at 146,000 cubic feet per minute. So we've got quite a bit of air moving. So on the left, that's a bag house. You can see the kind of rectangular structures where the bags sit. The cone at the bottom is where the dust drops into. On the right, we've got a very happy employee holding a bag for you guys to see. It's basically a plastic skeleton encased in a porous fabric. On the right are some draw points into the bag houses from the primary crusher dump pocket. And then the 2 photos to the left, or to the right, excuse me, are junctions, belt junctions, where we're actually pulling dust right off the belts themselves. The upper left is what they call the clean side of a bag house. So this is after the air goes through the bags and dust is removed. Those black tubes running back and forth, that's for the compressed air to blow down in the bags, to blow the dust off the bags. The center photo is just a stack with the blower of it. And then the photo on the right is the bottom of a hopper feeding into a slurry box. So. So 2021 was a pretty tough year for us at the tailings impoundment. It was a tough year. We had a long, hot, dry summer, and it tailed into fall. We had unusually warm weather even into November, and we had a lot of wind. And I think it was August of 2021, we had back-to-back days with gusts that exceeded 65 miles an hour. And if you look back at the meteorological record, 65 mile an hour gusts are not unheard of in Butte, but you get an event, go 2, 3, 4 years, have another event, 2, 3, 4 years, another event. This was back-to-back days. And I remember back in 2021, calculating how many days we had wind gusts in excess of 50 miles an hour, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was double digit. And I'm here to tell you, 2021 kicked our butt. We had several very severe dust events off the tailings impoundment. And at the end of 2021 and in early 2022, we all got together and we said, hey, listen, there's a new sheriff in town, and what worked in the past ain't gonna be working in the future. We've got a whole new game that's just been upped against us, and we need to rise to that occasion. So we started out by saying, okay, what did work in 2021? Well, two things that worked very well were where we could get out and when we had dust suppressant, which is mag chloride is what we use, and we could get out there and we could get it applied, it held and contained the dust. The other thing that worked very well was when we could get the tailings slurry out onto the beach and wet the beach, in those areas, they would stay wet, and wet tailings don't blow. Okay, so how do we get more dust suppressant out there, and how do we get more tailings wet with the tailings slurry that we have? So a couple things. Well, obviously, there's specialty equipment to get out on the tailings, otherwise you get stuck. It's pretty soft material, and so we've got units, they're called Terramax. And down in the bottom, the second to last point, we did this survey of North America mining industry, what other people are doing. And a lot of people were using Terramax, but other people suggested another piece of equipment called an All-Trax. And so we ordered an All-Trax. In March of 2022. It has not been delivered yet, but we're trying to get more equipment. We were living hand to mouth on mag chloride. We ran out often. Our major supplier was out of Whitehall, and then we had a secondary supplier out of the Port of Montana, but they just couldn't get it to us fast enough, and they would run out. So let's get more on-site storage. Let's get more of this stuff on site so that we don't have to be hand to mouth. And then we did cycle times of these Terramax, just like we would do on a haul truck. What's the cycle time of a haul truck? What's the cycle time of a Terramac? Well, based on the cycle times, the Terramac was spending more time going and getting refilled and getting back out on the tailings than it was spending out on the tailings. So we said, well, first of all, let's get better distribution of the product so that they don't have to go so far. And second of all, let's bring the product to them, keep them on the tailings. So we bought a couple of water trucks, one for each of our Terramax. So, and I'll show you how much improvement that made, because we never did get more equipment yet. So we were still using the same amount of equipment. The other one, okay, how do we get more tailings beach wet? Well, in 2015, we had one discharge location for tailings, and it couldn't move. It was that point and that point only. That wasn't good for tailings beach development, so we started adding different discharge points, more for geotechnical stability of the tailings facility, but it also gave us, we had 10 different tailings places we could discharge in 2021, but we could only use 2 at a time. So if we had 3 dry spots, somebody's not getting addressed, okay? So we said, how can we get more? So we decreased the diameter of the discharges and made more of them so we could discharge from more points at the same time. So by the end of 2022, we had 26 different locations we could discharge from, and we could run 16 points at any one time. And then this year, we've got 29 different locations we can discharge from. And I believe, and I didn't put it on here because I wasn't absolutely sure, but I believe we can discharge from 19 of those points now. So, and I got a photo to show you how well that worked. We also get, since about 2014, we've been getting custom weather forecast with wind advisories, so we can prepare. We can see, as much as 5 days in advance that we've got to be prepared. And this guy is very accurate. I mean, this isn't the guy on TV. This is a serious meteorologist. So I hope Mike Hurd's not here. Anyways. And then we did this survey. We hired an engineering firm to talk to as many operations in North America as would talk to them on what they do to control tailings dust. And we found a few pearls out of that, but mostly we found what people were doing were the same things we were doing, they were just doing more of it. And there was no silver bullet, there was no pixie dust you can sprinkle out there and the problem goes away. And the other nice thing we did is everyone that gave us information, we gave them a study, the final study as well. So they got the benefit of others' participation. So that was a kind of a neat activity. And then we've got a dedicated tailings crew. We got 3 guys. This is what you do. Your job is to not have dust come off of this facility. So this is a picture of how the multiple discharge locations worked. So we would run the discharges off the east and west side, and then we would save, you can kind of see the darker gray, that's wet tailings. And then in the center, kind of the more browner color, that's where we were treating with mag chloride. So we took a 1,000-acre facility where we had to treat 75% with mag chloride, and we reversed those numbers. Essentially, we wetted 75% and treated 25%. Huge success. This was one of the biggest successes we've had. Since that time, we've added more discharge points kind of in that big center area that actually covers that center area, and we have very little area that needs mag chloride now. So this illustrates a couple of things. Number one, in 2023, we've only applied 350,000 gallons of mag chloride this year. That is in large part because of the additional discharge points, but also because of all the wet weather we've had. We haven't had to apply the mag chloride. But if you look at 2021, we tried to apply as much mag chloride as we possibly could in 2021, and the best we could do was 230,000 gallons. By increasing on-site storage and delivering the mag chloride to the Terramax out on the beach, we were able in 2022 to get 1.4 million gallons of mag chloride out on the beach. So that's how much, even with the same number of units applying, that's how much we could increase just by increasing the efficiency and keeping those units on the beach and keeping a supply of mag chloride on site. Uh-oh. So just a couple of pictures, some tanks. You can kind of make out next to the tanks, on the right of the tanks, a little black thing. That's a bladder tank. It was like a big waterbed mattress that you can fill with mag chloride. And we've got those. Those are nice because when they're empty, you can move them wherever you need them. So the top right is a Terramac. Bottom left is a 12-inch discharge spigot, and you kind of see where it is now, but you also can see where it has been. And that kind of just wanders around, wetting that little small area of its own little world there. But when you get 19 of these doing the same thing, all of a sudden you got a lot of area. So, and you know, it'll sit like that for, you know, half a day, and then it'll move over somewhere else. Half a day, move over somewhere else, and just keeps that whole area wet. Works great. So I think this next one, and it's my last one, is, well, maybe not. Yeah, I had a video in there of a Terramac actually out on the tailing spraying mag chloride, but sorry.
It was good.
I don't know. You take questions.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That was a great presentation. I'll open it up to questions from commissioners. Yep, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, thank you for being here. That was super informative. I love learning about how things operate. This is probably a really dumb question, but where does the water come from that's in the water trucks?
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, that comes out of the tailings impoundment. So when we go into the wet grinding process and we go into flotation, we float off the minerals, and then we're left with the rest of the non-mineralized rock, which we pump up to the tailings impoundment as a slurry, about 65% water, 35% solids. As it goes out on the beach, as we saw that discharge point, the solids are actually dropping out, and then the clean water decants to the north end of the pond. We pick it up and we pump it back to the mill. So we got this giant recirculation loop. Well, along that pipeline coming back to the mill, we have taps. We've got about 3 taps where water trucks can fill out of that recycled water. Good question, though.
Yeah, Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mark, for coming. I appreciate you coming. Like I said, I've seen a number of your presentations, and every time you just learn more and more. And I think I try to encourage you to come and do more of these. Like I asked you in the past, the one on your water treatment, that's just as interesting or even more interesting. And we've lived here our whole life, and most of us don't have a clue what goes on over in that mine other than they move dirt. Some people complain you create dust, but they don't realize the effort you put in to make sure everything's good and healthy for the community, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And you get to see when we don't do a good job too, especially on tailing stuff. So,
Commissioner Storage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark, thank you for being here. Montana Resource must be doing something right. 20 years ago, I used to receive quite a few phone calls. Today, I'm receiving very few, so I must be doing a compliment, doing something right to try to keep the dust in check.
thank you, Commissioner, and it helped changing your phone number too.
Thanks. I have one question, and forgive me if I missed this, but over the years since I've been on the commission, we've had certain citizens in that neighborhood say that a lot of the dust comes from when the truck backs in to the crusher. Did you have to do anything to address that, or did I miss something with the bag houses? And if I did, sorry, but I just don't remember that in the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, yes, thank you. Yes, we pull a lot of that 284,000 cubic feet per minute of air is drawn out of that dump pocket where you see the trucks dump and you see the plume. I received today a feasibility study to enhance dust mitigation at that particular point, and I'm reviewing that. So it is on the table to, see if we can do some improvement there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Mark, just one last thank you for being here. I think I learned something, again, after hearing this 2 weeks ago. And I'm kind of like Commissioner Callahan said, I think it's important that, we as a community recognize, firstly, how valuable you are to our community, but also what you guys do to keep all of us safe as well while you do it. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, any more questions? All right. Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Thatcher, for putting this communication on. And thank you, Mark. All right. Moving on. Communication number 2023-483. Joe Griffith, Montana Department of Environmental Quality, retired, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for time on the September 27th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting to present a PowerPoint titled The Waters of Upper Silverbow Creek Superfund Management. Attached are 2 relevant documents. Mr. Griffin.
Thank you very much, Chairman Frederickson and members of the council. My old bosses, I hope you forgive me for referring to myself as retired, but I guess I'm still trying to claim to be DEQ. I put this together because I have been here 3 times before to address Chairman Fisher's draft resolution, and I guess it's on there again tonight. And in some of those, somebody brought the consent decree. It's about that thick. And it's how do you understand this? So is what I'm going to give you, and I've had a long history of working on Superfund here in Butte, going back to the in Butte specifically to 1994. But so this is my view of what's happened in Butte priority soils, and really specific mostly to that corridor that we call Upper Silverbow Creek. I still refer to the channel itself as the Metro Storm Drain, but I like this picture. I think some of you would recognize Nora Sachs there. She did Richest Hill podcast. That is Rye Vincent, the son of Matt Vincent, former chief executive here. And they are right on Blacktail Creek, just above the confluence with the Metro Storm Drain Channel. And I'd just like to point out that Blacktail Creek has been a thriving fisheries for a long time. That is not a native fish, but it is part of a thriving fisheries. Let's see, got to figure out how to work this thing. There we go. So kind of a view of the whole piece I'm going to talk about. Actually, this goes to the very west end of Butte Priority soils as far as groundwater goes. So let me describe what you see. We just saw part of this in Mark Thompson's talk. There's the tailings impoundment, of course, and that's the old track of Silver Lake. The two uppermost headwaters were originally called Yankee Doodle Creek and Dixie Creek, and they came together to make Silverbow Creek. And you see that they come down, and it used to pass through where the concentrator is now, and then it enters an area where it's indicated as a yellow line. So that yellow line is a storm drain. It is dry unless there is water falling from the sky. But underneath it is, and I'll get to that a little bit more, is a subdrain. It's just a long horizontal well, and it is collecting very contaminated groundwater. And I'll get to that a little bit more. And then you can see Blacktail Creek coming in as the light blue, and it meets the Metro Storm Drain Channel and becomes Silverbow Creek. All of those red dots are many of the wells that have been placed in there to look at groundwater quality. The black line and sort of brownish color within it is the area that EPA described, or they analyzed it and said, we can never fix the groundwater there. It is technically impracticable, but we will manage it. And that's a big part of this story, actually. So, looking a little more at groundwater specifically, of course we can see the Parrot tailings up there, and we know that a portion of the Parrot tailings were removed. I say a portion because there's a lot that was left there. Everything under that elevated railroad bed is left in place. And just on the other side of that, groundwater is not as contaminated as it was at the ball field, but it's very contaminated. So there's still what I might call gray area material left in place there. And then we have, in the light blue is that subdrain I was talking about. There's another groundwater collection system, and that's called the hydraulic control channel. That was the first groundwater capture system built, and it's an open channel, and it works. We'll see how well it works. It works really well as well. The MSD subdrain was put in right about the time I joined DEQ in 2004, so they were working on it at that point in time. You'll notice that I have that red circle around a gap between those two groundwater collection systems. That is in the consent decree. That is an area that will be addressed. And there is contaminated groundwater getting in there. So is what EPA said is we can never clean up this aquifer. There's too much secondary contamination there. But we can manage it. So we're going to manage it by capturing and treating groundwater. And the point being is that groundwater, they have said we will not allow groundwater to affect the water quality in Silverbow or Blacktail Creek. So that's where they ended up with their amended ROD. And as far as those of us that live here, there is a ban on using that groundwater. So it's pretty easy to protect people from that groundwater. It's the same as Butte mine flooding and the 10,000 miles of underground workings. It will be managed in perpetuity as well. It will be managed by pumping and treating it. And it will be, we will protect people's health by not allowing them. It's an institutional control. So the little red circle down there is actually the groundwater treatment facility. That's a big part of current discussions about future designs for this in perpetuity groundwater treatment system. Is they will have additional groundwater that'll probably be going to that system. So they're still trying to work that out. And this is that area down there. So this is actually the first part of Silverbow Creek that was ever cleaned up. And this was an area called Lower Area 1. It's actually the Colorado Tailings and the Butte Reduction Works. You can see the Colorado Tailings were that rectangular whitish area in the left-hand side. Those were removed. The stream was moved to the south. A whole floodplain was built, and they built that treatment system out of what was a large piece of the Colorado Tailings that operates very efficiently. They meet standards almost all of the time. It's a pretty impressive system. So how have we been doing? Well, this is just copper. I'm not going to take you through zinc and cadmium and arsenic and lead, but this is looking at total recoverable copper. That is, and this is in Silverbow Creek. Let me go back. You can see right where Silverbow Creek goes under the interstate, there's something that says, and you can't read it, it says SS07. That's a sampling point. The USGS samples there, DEQ samples there, and ARCO samples there. There's a hell of a lot of data in that one spot. And this is what that data says. Now, you might ask, was the USGS out there in the 70s sampling? No, that was actually the Anaconda Company, and it's roughly the same location as far as I could figure it. It's from a paper written by a guy named John Spindler. He was the first environmental manager for the company. He was actually a fish biologist, and he'd worked for the state as a fish biologist. But he started making changes to the operation at the mine. They were adding more lime. They were starting to recirculate their water. And so you can see, first of all, I'll say those are concentrations in parts per billion on the left. And please note that's a logarithmic scale. It goes by jumps of power of 10. So you can see the earliest sampling is pretty high up there. And he was bringing down the levels of copper in Silverbow Creek. In 82, they turned off the pumps. Remember, all of that water was just going straight to Silverbow Creek. So Silverbow Creek has a long history of being half, maybe roughly half mine discharge, acid mine discharge. So then we get into the Superfund period, and we can see the improvements we've been making. And this data, this is a little bit older. I try and update these as much as I can, but as a matter of fact, now with the discharge of mine water, which has high hardness, and the standard is based on hardness in the water, Silverbow Creek's meeting the standard largely for, after all these years, for copper. Hey. This was 10 years after, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks started electrofishing and doing counts, and they were doing it in that area where the Colorado tailings were. And this was 10 years after I happened to be out with them that day and took this picture. And Ben Whiteford, who was one of their technicians, and I went and had beers that night. This was a big damn deal, wasn't it? That is a brook trout, and that brook trout came out of Blacktail Creek. So that's controlling groundwater, and stormwater is a whole different story. The monitoring that went into that graphic was all non-storm event monitoring. So it's what we call chronic conditions. But this is the Metro storm drain after a pretty good rainfall, and that's the bridge on Harrison Avenue. So the Civic Center is just off to the right. So this is a schematic. Those light blue are schematics anyways of where the main storm drains systems are on the hill. This is overlaid on it's either a 1898 or the 1901 version of the map here. And you can see what Silverbow Creek used to look like in the day. That's part of the problem. Sort of, it's hard to read it, but up towards the right in the big black boxy areas, that's the Parrot Smelter. So those are where the tailings are. You can kind of see how the creek actually does a wowie around the tailings that they're slurring out into the creek. At that time, they were using the stream as an industrial sewer, and the tailings were going straight in there. So that's why we have the Parrot tailings is the way they are. And that's the way it looks like today. I'd note, and we're going to get into this more, is on the very left-hand side, that is Missoula Gulch, and it has a system of stormwater ponds on it. So this is the Metro, this is the MSD, and they are actually jetting out the subdrain. They have to jet it out a couple of times a year. It builds up an iron precipitate. Works pretty well. They keep it running really well, but that's what it looks like. So one of the major things that went into the ROD amendment and then into the consent decree was the requirement for these detention basins. And this is CB8, this is on Missoula Gulch. Not a bad looking pond, is it? So there they are again, and the CB9 is the smaller one. It hardly looks like anything. But this is the way they operate. So you have this control structure, and it will fill up with a series of storm events, or maybe it fills all the way up to the top in one huge storm event, but it will start releasing water out those orifices. And it's actually, the orifices are turned around the wrong way here. You should have the little one at the lower part, a bigger one above. Actually, the whole surface of the top of that structure is a grate. And I've seen storm water events where it's actually flowing over the top and down the grate. Ultimately, there's a riprap emergency spillway for it too. But you can imagine these are meant to be a pond through the summer. Yeah. So how well do they work? And the answer is it was the best thing they've tried in Butte. So if we measure copper in other words, where it comes into CB8, and it's a real trick to do this for storms, and then if you measure copper concentrations going out into Silverbow Creek, you get this story here. So Missoula Gulch Inn is on the left, and those are, the dots are average. The dividing line between the green and the gray area is the 50th percentile. So it doesn't matter if you fully understand that. It's pretty easy to see that Missoula Gulch Inn is way, way worse than Missoula Gulch Out. I mean, and you know, simple calculation says it's removing about 95% of an unfiltered sample. It actually removes about 55% of a filtered sample. And by comparison, that's what Blacktail Creek looks like during storms. There's no major mining above it. So I have another graphic. I didn't include it here, but when we were doing this work, and this is when I was still at DEQ, we were looking around for, Butte has an immense amount of stormwater data. And we thought, well, let's look around the state of Montana. Nah. Big Fork. Big Fork had done one season of stormwater sampling. Their stormwater for metals, for copper, looked like Missoula Gulch Out. There's no mining at Big Fork. So we take water in these ponds, and it looks like it's water coming from a mining city, and we turn it into Big Fork's water. So this is, so then getting on to, like I said, this was in the amended record of decision. This was discussed and is part of the consent decree. It's part of the scope of work in that consent decree is to build these ponds. And this was sort of an early version that ARCO had when this was sort of going public. Where are we going to go with this? In the meantime, and I was a member of Restore Our Creek Coalition, and I participated in this whole series of workshops. I thought it was really impressive what we had put together as far as public opinion and maybe what could be done out there. I thought it was really interesting that Restore Our Creek said, well, we need to take all the documentation we've come up with, and we need to hire a firm that can put together a vision for us, a vision document, which this is the cover of. And they went out for bids, and they got 2 bids from Montana firms. They got 1 bid from a firm in New York City. Who do you think got it? It was New York City. And you know why? Because they looked at this and they said, this will make our resume. This is a town that we can turn out a vision statement. This is going to be a big deal. They sent people out here to do this. They bought this project. I am pretty sure they did not make money off of this. And I talked a lot with the woman that was out here. They did a bang-up job. So this is, you know, they broke it down into sections. I'm not going to go through that. This is the overall section. And all the way up at the right, rectangular gray area is the Civic Center. And then all the way at the left, that's Montana Street. But this is a conceptual design. And this has no stormwater engineering to it. But, you know, they had these pictures, and they're great. You know, I don't know that I ever personally thought we would have a free-flowing stream, but I always thought the mine's going to be discharging water, and that has to meet water quality standards. Maybe there's room for a channel there. And in my mind, it looked more like, well, this is what I said, and I brought this to Restore Our Creek this was right after I retired. And I said, look at guys, there's gonna have to be stormwater management down there, and there's gonna have to be these ponds. And in my mind, I wanted to maximize that, because I'm not a design engineer. I'm just thinking, build them as big as you can. But I'm also thinking that those ponds are really like a wetlands. And, you know, there's the Lexington Avenue wetland. It's also been called the bison wetland because it strangely looks like a bison. But, and in my mind, this is what it looked like. And this is, I think, the view from either the Cause Street or the Oregon Street Bridge. And that's Blacktail Creek on the right, and those are the natural wetlands off to the left. And, you know, at the time that we had finished that up, Doug Benevento came to town, and he met with Restore Our Creek, and I was there, and I was very impressed with the guy, because I had been party to consent decree negotiations for a long time. Anyways, probably 9 years of them. I knew how difficult they were. And he said, first of all, we're going to get a consent decree, or I'm just going to order the work to be done. And that's his prerogative. And that would have been dangerous. That would have screwed both Butte-Silver, it would have screwed the state of Montana, it would have screwed ARCO. It would have been a mess. And ARCO would have been able to say, we think what you're doing is outrageous, and we'll just see you in court. So keep that in mind. I don't know if they would have done that. But the other thing he said is, you will not like everything we do. So take it a step further, Atlantic Richfield started coming up with their own vision documents, and it's based on starting with their own engineering. And then they went out to the community, and they had, I think, they had 2 evenings where they got people together with maps, and they said, here's Post-its, here's writing implements, tell us what you want, you know, and people did a lot of work on these, and so then they took them in, and they looked at them and considered all of that input, and they did another set of meetings, and they said, here's a second bite at the apple. You know, we've tried to incorporate everything we could that you asked, now here's the second bite. And what came out of that was the Silverbow Creek Conservation Area. And the large green area is what we would call the Diggings East. And to the north of that, because this is a view north, is the North Side Tailings area. And then going off into the distance is the ponds for Buffalo Gulch. You know, and they came up with, again, their own sort of graphics. This is what it looked like on the ground. But what was interesting is, to me, because I was aware of the Shiloh Conservation Area in Billings, and it's a stormwater management area that was built into a park. And so they have ponds, and they have wetlands, and it's gorgeous. They had that gazebo there. But what was interesting is that was designed and built by Land Designed Incorporated, which is the company that Atlantic Richfield hired to build the Silverbow Creek Conservation Area. So that's kind of the end of my story. But I will explain these two pictures. This is the confluence. Actually, I don't remember how many years ago I took the picture in the lower right. It was a few years ago, I know, because the willows are quite a bit bigger now. But anyways, the water you see going up the left channel, the Metro Storm Drain, that's actually just backflow from Blacktail Creek. When they rebuilt the channel, they lowered the elevation of the bottom of the channel so it gets that backflow. But the interesting thing is that photo in the upper left. So that was, there's some close-up pictures of that, and so I'm pretty sure this was in the mid-50s, and I'll tell you why in a second. But those people along the banks are children of Butte, and they're fishing, and it's a fishing derby. And the reason I say I think it's from the 50s is there's some close-up of those kids, and they look like me. They look like they're dressed like me, so pretty sure it's the 50s. But on the left, in that picture, you can see acid mine drainage entering Blacktail Creek. And it's probably, it looks cloudy probably because there is so much iron coming out of solution and becoming particulates. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'll entertain questions if there are any.
All right, thank you, Mr. Griffin. I will open it up for questions from commissioners. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, Joe, for coming. Every time we see your presentation or you take us on a field trip, we always learn more. You're always willing to educate us, and that's great because you've been with it since the beginning, and you're still here trying to do the right thing now, and we certainly appreciate it. You put a lot of time and effort into this. This is all volunteer for you. I mean, you've invited everybody on this council numerous times on field trips, and we appreciate what you do, and keep up the good work for our community. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the
Sure.
Presentation. As you know, you and I don't agree on everything. And I do have a few questions about some of the things you're talking about, like the Metro storm drain being very effective. I don't think it is. I mean, it's got to be pumped out twice a year, 3 times a year. I mean, still calling Silver Creek Metro storm drain. That's been decided a long time ago. There's no need to bring that up. And,
I said that.
No.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You also talked about the Colorado retainings and the reduction works, you know. If you've been up there lately, you'll see them fields are not what they're supposed to be. And the fish you're showing in the pond were from 2007. The fish today, they aren't in the creek. I mean, you know what we're going through. We're pumping Silver Lake water down there right now, and clean water from MRI down the creek to try and keep the fish alive. So I mean, everything you've done, I appreciate what you've done in the past, but I think what you're doing in the future is trying to show us what was done in the past. What we want to know now is what we can do in the future to make it right. And I do appreciate all your service, and it's nothing personal. It's just my opinion and yours, and I do thank you for your presentation.
I'll give you an opportunity to, if you have anything to say about that, Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, I do. And just starting with the fish, there are still fish there. There have been maybe reduced numbers, but there are still fish in that LAO area. And they are not discharging Silver Lake water down that creek. That was used for a short period to help manage in the beginning the discharge from the mine. And I mean, that's an interesting question, is how that'll be worked out. I've followed it intensely. I get their monthly reports, and I'm really keeping up on that. But I often go out with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks and look at the sampling. As a matter of fact, I was out last week. They put some radio tags in some trout, both cutthroat and brookies, and then they can track them. But to track them, they actually have to drive around close to the creek somewhere, and then they can get out and they have a handheld antenna, and it's directional, and they can start to get a signal, and the signal will tell them that that fish is Ralph or number 386 or whatever it is. And they are in LAO, they are below LAO, in the streamside tailings part of Silver Bow Creek. I'd also say the cleaning of the subdrain works fine. It's just like any other thing. It's just like our sewage treatment plant. Takes a lot of maintenance to keep it running. Pretty simple thing.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. And Joe, I do appreciate all you do. I don't want to be sarcastic. I just like to keep my facts and your facts straight through everything. And the thing about it is, the solution to pollution is dilution. And that's what we're doing down there. That's what we're pouring that water down the creek for, is because there's still pollution flowing down there. And we're not doing anything in this upper first mile to solve that I know of. And if we are, I'd like to have that explained at a later date. But thank you for your presentation.
No, we can't be. Yeah, that's all right. All right, Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, thank you for being here. It was a great refresher, brought back all of the memories of taking the many tours with you. It's very interesting, the engineering that's already on the hill that's capturing the stormwater and whatnot. Excuse me, been fighting off a cold. So thank you for being here. I would like to know if we could get a copy of your PowerPoint.
Sure.
I would love to be able to zoom in on some of those old pictures.
I guess, do I just give you, I mean, you have it. You have my permission to give it to her.
Okay.
Okay, we can maybe
Sure.
get it from Bob.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Thank you for coming and doing the presentation. Very much appreciate it. I just want to, clarify when we go on facts. Like to my knowledge, there's currently not any Silver Lake water being pumped into the creek today. So I just want to clarify the fact on the record. If anybody's listening and don't want to, make that anything crazy. We don't want somebody on Friday. I don't want to see somebody Friday at the Butte High game and think that. So I just want to really clarify that. What's that? Yeah, I don't know if Eric would like to come up. Because when we are talking about this, again, I would definitely want to state that the facts do get skewed a lot, I think. So the facts need to be definitely clear when we're talking about this. It can't be wishy-washy. Thank you.
Commissioner
Director
O'Neill.
Hassler, I'm not sure what the question was there, but I'll let you
Thank you, Chairman
address
Frederickson.
that.
For the record, I'm Eric Hassler. I'm the Director of the Department of Reclamation and Environmental Services for Butte-Silver Bow. I believe the question was, is Silver Lake water being currently pumped into Silver Bow Creek or Blacktail Creek? And the answer is no. It has not been for a few years now, and as Joe said, it was only done for a short period of time to try to help bring the discharge online and figure out the situation there. So it was a very short period of time, but the answer is no. There is no Silver Lake water being discharged into Silver Bow Creek or Blacktail Creek.
Okay, thank you. Yep, follow up, Commissioner O'Neill.
And thank you, Chairman Frederickson. And I'm not trying to start an argument here because that's how this whole thing always ends up. But also the Silver Bow Creek part of it, right? That's, I guess I don't want to cause an argument. So I guess that, never mind. Disregard me. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Sounds good. All right, are there any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none? Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to Section 2 Communications. 1, communication number 2023-436, Jim Fisher, Commissioner, District 6, requesting a resolution to be considered for expressing the policy of Butte-Silver Bow regarding consent decree commitments, communications, and public transparency. Commissioner Shea, Commissioner Fisher, and I have been working on some edits to that document. I was also in touch with County Attorney's Office today, and we're going to hold that for another 2 weeks for the Committee of the Whole. And for the next Committee of the Whole meeting on that agenda will be the original resolution, the red line resolution, so you can look at what suggested edits we made. And then at that point, if the other commissioners have other input, we can work off of that document with the edits. So I'll answer any questions on that. Okay, seeing none, we'll hold that for another 2 weeks. Appreciate the patience as we work through this. Moving on to communication number 2023-444, Julie Jackshaw, 3251 South Montana Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners consideration a ban plastic bag usage in Silver Bow County and adopt an environmentally conscious stance. I have not been in touch with Julie Jackshaw, and so I don't know if, so I don't know. I would open it up for a discussion on what we should do with this. It's a little frustrating when someone submits a communication and doesn't follow up. So, Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. Obviously, no disrespect to Mrs. Jackshaw. I guess my question would be, I feel like I read something that it was against state law to do this, and so I guess where my position would lie would be, are we just pushing this down the road just because if there's nothing that, essentially if our hands are tied, I guess,
Yeah.
what result are we going to get out of it? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. I agree with you. And so I will refer to our legal advisor, County Attorney Joyce, if she has any thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Thatcher, I'll have to look into the state law on that issue. I'm not aware of the precise statute you might be referring to, but I'm happy to look into it and advise you accordingly.
Okay. Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. At this time, I'd like to deny communication number 2023-444.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Sorich.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Before we deny it, would suspense, would it be better just to put it in suspense file and revisit it maybe down the road 3 or 4 months? Just to, I'm just throwing it out. Food for thought.
Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a substitute motion to hold this. I will reach out to Ms. Jackshaw personally and ask her to come in 2 weeks and speak to it. I believe her intent was to basically have a position so that if the ban on bans at the state level is ever repealed, we would have an opportunity to talk about it at that time. But sorry, I talked too long. But my motion would be to hold it in abeyance, and I'll reach out to Julie.
We have a motion and a second on the substitute motion. Is there anything on the question? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chairman Frederickson. We received this letter from Julie Jackshaw on August 25th. It's now the 1st of October this week. I've not seen her up here one time to present this, or, how I am. If you put something on the agenda and you don't show up to deny or, approve what you want to do, I'm sticking with it, and I'm going to go with Commissioner O'Neill's motion to deny.
Well, we would have to, so here's our order. We have a substitute motion to hold it. Substitute motion doesn't fail, or substitute motion fails, then we would go to Commissioner O'Neill's. And then we have one other option. All right, so since we don't have another motion, we will be voting on Commissioner Shea's motion to hold this for another 2 weeks. Commissioners, Clerk, will you record the vote?
5 yea, 5 nay.
All right, well, I will have to, procedure-wise, I can't remember what we do here, Commissioner, or County Attorney Joyce. Motion fails?
Oh, it fails because you don't have a majority
Okay.
vote.
So now we will go to the original motion, which was to deny communication number 2023-444 and place on file, correct? Okay. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
8 yea, 2 nay.
8 yea, no, motion passes. Moving on, communication number 2023-445, Ben Giles and David Allen, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation on September 20th, 2023 on the proposed High Divide Conservation Area. We had this presentation last week. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place on file communication number 2023-445.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. 4, communication number 2023-454, Kayla Sheridan, 212 Bavarian Street, Butte, Montana, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization to give a presentation on September 27th, 2023, relating to the remodel of 739 South Main Street, Butte, Montana. We had this presentation earlier tonight. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place on file communication number 2023-454.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Motion passes. 5, communication number 2023-477, Angie Mulliken, Public Works Budget and Grants Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening for October 18th, 2023 for the landscape restoration of the Basin Creek watershed. This project is a grant funded by the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation to address dead and dying trees within the watershed. We will hold that for the presentation or the bid opening on October 18th. 6, communication number 2023-478, Angie Mulliken, Public Works Budget and Grants Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening for October 18th, 2023 for the molten water treatment plant filtration replacement project. We will hold that for the bid opening on October 18th. 7, communication number 2023-479, Hattie Thatcher, District 3 Commissioner and Board of Health Member, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for time on the September 27th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting for Mark Thompson, Vice President of Environmental Affairs for Montana Resources, to give a presentation regarding the dust control mitigation program. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place on file communication number 2023-479.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything on the question? Would commissioners please vote?
No laughing.
Clerk, will you record the vote?
10 yea, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay. 10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. 8, communication number 2023-480, Bill Melvin, Butte Civic Center Manager, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to schedule a bid opening for October 4th, 2023, regular meeting agenda for a bid opening for the replacement of bleachers at the Butte Civic Center. We will hold this till next week for the bid opening. 9, communication number 2023-483, Joe Griffin, Montana Department of Environmental Quality, retired, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for time on the September 27th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting to present a PowerPoint titled The Waters of Upper Silverbow Creek, Superfund Management. Attached are 2 relevant documents. Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would make a motion to place on file communication number 2023-483.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything? Would commissioners please vote? Clerk, will you record the vote?
10 yeas, 0 nay.
10 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. I will now ask for public comment on any public matter not on the agenda. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
There you go. Thank you, sir. I'm Brett Berry. I live at 519 West Galena, and I just wanted to pop in and see, as we talked about, I guess we heard about tailings discharge points, blasting techniques, groundwater management, and we also talked a little bit about the Anaconda Mining Company. I just want to make sure, since you guys are in charge of our protection and our safety, that the Anaconda Mining Company's MO, modus operandi, is to build all this up, then to flood their sites. This is what they do in South America. So just as little as 9 years ago, they did all this prep work that we're reading about now that sounds great, so that they could suffer a unplanned, unimaginable natural disaster that happened to benefit them greatly financially, and they were able to walk away from all their Superfund obligations down there. This is their plan. You know, it's not going to be hard to see when you look down in South America and what they've done there. So, and anyone can look around town and see how weird it is. But they're planning to flood Butte, so, you know, and to force the displacement of people away from Butte to FEMA camps or whatnot. I was a captain in the United States Army, so I know what a prepped objective looks like, and I'm going to Billings. So, but I appreciate everybody that does what they do here, but I can't help myself. I have to jump back to the communication one about transparency. We already went through that 20 years ago on the reclamation stuff. They owe us all that information. It's that easy. Also, on the communication side of things, we recently redid our bail bond list for people that are incarcerated here in Butte-Silver Road Jail. It no longer lists the bond, it no longer lists the bail amount, and it no longer lists the exact charges that they're facing. This is an issue because no one at the jail answered the phone for an entire month or responded to a message to get that information. So now that it's not on that, what do? I don't know. I think we need to do what we need to do to get people out of jail, because as a caveat to that, there's no more free phone calls during booking. So in a jail that is grossly overcrowded, which was, you know, I guess that can't be helped since everyone in there is innocent until proven guilty. Sure, we can't figure something out there. But they recently lost their food sources there at the jail. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but now CCP. So some wonderful old lady, Mrs. Willington, shoulders all the stuff for the whole jail, and it's just not the right way to do things. You know, we got some of those guys up there are hefty, and they want to stay hefty. But, and on dust control, I was in the Army. All you have to do is slow down, stop driving so fast, dust isn't there. It's that easy. I'll probably be bothering you guys a couple weeks, but thank you guys. And look into that South America thing, because it's pretty wrong. A historical walk would be nice, because these unplanned, crazy natural disasters happen to benefit that company perfectly. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Berry. Any other questions for public comment on any public matter not on the agenda?
The communication about removing vehicles from private land is criminal, and we should shut down our community enrichment department. They are criminals.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that commissioners would like to speak on?
I would just like to take a moment here at the end of the meeting and have it on record that it's my nephew's Quinn's birthday, so a big shout out to Quinn and happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Quinn. If you're still tuning in, I'll give you a happy birthday shout out.
I'm sure, like every other little kid, he's anxiously listening to a council meeting.
I will ask for a motion to adjourn. All those in